Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voice Podcast. I'll be your host today, Sage Smith. Vancouver did the 2025 homeless count last night, and many are wondering what the statistics will tell us this time. The city saw a 16% increase between the 2020 and the 2023 homeless count, which were the last time that the counts were done. A concerning increase. The count is organized by the Homeless Services Association of BC in partnership with various community organizations. It's a point-in-time count, which means it provides a snapshot of people who are experiencing homelessness in a 24-hour period. And the numbers are understood to be a minimum count of homelessness in the area. The definition used in this count is a person who does not have a place to pay rent. Some experts, such as Dr. Weissman from the University of New Brunswick, who specializes in post-secondary student homelessness, wonder if the student homelessness experience is being reflected in these statistics at all, considering they do not ask about occupation or if one is a student. Weissman is a lived experience scholar who studies what he once lived through: homelessness, addiction, and mental health challenges. He has done various research projects about post-secondary student homelessness, and he joins us to speak about it today. We really appreciate having Dr. Weissman here, and we're going to jump straight into the interview.
Don't forget the first surveys, I think close to 700 people filled them out. Students were in school when they filled them out. 8% of them altogether were experiencing some form of homelessness. So they were very resilient, but the things they were doing to stay in school were really troubling. That's why we wanted to work on this. So people were staying in really abusive relationships, or they were getting into abusive relationships, or sexually exploited relationships, or into gangs to stay housed. And then people who didn't have housing were sleeping in gymnasiums in their cars. And now that number, by the way, I was looking at data about a month ago. So we estimated that the number was close to 5%. There's another study out of the US that says it's closer to 20%.
So do you think that the student homelessness statistics are relatively on par with the statistics that we're seeing for the general population?
They're both toned down. And I don't think it's not that they're doing it on purpose necessarily, but their data they collected 2 years ago and we hear about it now. Mm-hmm. And also there's underreporting because they don't have access like I might have access to people. On the ground, the numbers are, I would say, 20, 30, 40% higher than what's reported. On point-in-time counts, which are useful, they don't get everything. So, and students don't disclose all the time. One of the interesting things that happened in the surveys and our interviews, every time we do a call for participation, is we give them the definition of homelessness that we use, the 5 different definitions, and they go, "Oh my God, I've been homeless before and I didn't know it." I don't think Canadian students need to settle. I think one of the things that we talk about a lot is not just the role of the student to make choices to manage their affairs, but what the schools and what the government and communities need to do to help students achieve their educational goals.
Absolutely. And it seems like safety is also an important aspect of this conversation because they mostly feel fairly alone. Sometimes they're not sharing that with the instructors or others.
No, they don't share. So when I see students sleeping in class, I sometimes, not always, but after I get to know them, especially students who take my classes tend to take them because I know a little bit of my reputation. So sometimes if I see a student who's consecutively exhausted, I'll sit down and say, "Listen, what's going on? You seem really..." And you'd be amazed at how many students come to class to sleep because they have to stay up all night to stay alive. That when we're out there, sometimes we have to move around all night, especially when it's cold, move from place to place. And then during the day, it's easier to hide or to pass. So and again, I'm glad that this isn't the largest proportion of students who identify as homeless, but that proportion is growing. So this is why point-in-time counts are important, but it's the trends that concern me. Like the really problematic, dangerous, unsafe forms of homelessness are increasing.
Thank you so much for your time, Eric. I can't
help.
No, it helped so much. That was such a great interview. I am so grateful that we were able to do that. We'll now be turning to our reporter, Juan DIAZ, who will tell us a little bit about students in Vancouver and how they're being affected by homelessness.
Sudarshan Adnavan has been living in his car for over 6 months and now says that it's going well, although there was one experience where he felt that his safety was almost affected.
I don't know, one time when I was sleeping in a residential area, cops come and knocked on my door.
This was something Sudarshan, an international student from India studying business management at Vancouver Community College, was used to.
And they asked my ID and they did a background check and everything. And they didn't bother me. They just checked everything and they said like, "Yeah, all is good."
Upon arrival to Canada, he struggled to find suitable housing.
And I paid like $700 for a closet in a single room condo. And like there were like total five people living in that condo, including me.
After moving to another apartment with similar issues, Sudarshan decided to take his housing into his own hands.
I had two choices. Either I have to get a rented apartment and work in a restaurant, or I can get a car and do DoorDash and live in the car.
Sudarshan said that he doesn't share his situation with many people at school and mostly relies on friends for support. And he's not alone. Rima Mill has experienced homelessness and never told a single person around her.
Homelessness can look one way. It can look couch surfing. It can look like you living in your car. It can look like you staying at one friend's house and then renting for 3 months and then going back to your friend's house. So homelessness just doesn't mean like you're in the streets, but it also means like a lack of basic support.
As a legal assistant for an insurance firm, Rim lived in a shelter during her post-secondary studies. Since then, she has worked hard to become a better example to society.
I know there's probably students out there who are struggling, and I just hope you know that education is the most important thing you can hold on to, and no one can take away from that. It's your greatest superpower.
The Langara students we spoke to were not surprised students find themselves homeless in Vancouver.
It would be great if some place like Langara would be able to have some housing options available, because I know a lot of international students don't actually have housing before they actually come into Canada or Vancouver, just because I don't know why, but I know that there's a lot of scams. So
I've heard people having like issues with their like rentings, and like they had to move like every 3 months to like 2 months to other places, and like they had like struggle with like finding a good place or like even a room to rent. And like if they want to rent, they have to like go with like 10, 8, 7 people.
Interestingly enough, both the students nor instructors say they were more than sympathetic but still uncomfortable talking about the student homelessness because of the stigma attached.
Thank you so much, Juan. That was really interesting to hear students' experiences, and I'm really grateful that people were willing to share that with you. And I want to thank everybody that joined us today. I know that I learned a lot, and I hope that you did as well. Signing off for The Voice, I'm Sage Smith.